Today I want to show you guys my take on the best $1,000 gaming PC in early 2020. It's got the Ryzen 3600, which is AMD's latest 6-core processor. They got enough power to even challenge Intel's Core i9 9900K in some games. Now, the 9900K, if you don't know, is a $500 processor, and the 3600 is selling for under $200, which is pretty impressive. Now, to match up this 6-core beast, I went with AMD's Radeon RX 5700 XT with tons of power to max out pretty much all AAA games in 1440p and still get silky smooth frame rates. But to give you guys a better idea what to expect, I benchmarked 9 of the most popular games in 1080, in 1440 and even 4K to give you a solid idea of what to expect here. Now, in case you want to jump over to the benchmark right away, you'll find a timestamp to that down in the video description. But hey, my name is Robin, welcome to Orbin Hardware. Hope you're doing fantastic. Let's get right into the video. So based on how this PC performs in some of the most popular games right now, you should be able to max out again all games in 1080, and 1440p is the sweet spot. 4K might also be an option here, but you may want to fine-tune the settings a bit to reach a satisfying frame rate. Now, for more information about each PC part and you want to check the most recent pricing, you find all links in the video description. Now, without any further ado, before we look at how this PC performs in games, let's start by checking out what PC parts I picked, and let's start with the CPU. So, 3rd gen Ryzen. AMD did a fantastic job here with Zen 2. The chiplet design, what a brilliant idea. And 7nm, yeah, we're getting more cores and high clock speeds and IPC than ever before. So when I started thinking about making a $1,000 gaming PC, now based on the feedback from you guys, picking the 3600 yet again felt like a no-brainer. Now, this processor comes in at just under $200. It's got 6 cores and 12 threads with a clock speed of 3.6. Now, I was as surprised as you guys were when I was testing this for the first time, and it turns out in some games, CSGO being one of them, this processor is really not that much slower than Intel's Core i9 9900K, which is a $500 processor. So being able to get this much gaming performance for this compelling price makes it a winner for anyone I want to build a $1,000 gaming PC right now. The Ryzen 3600 also comes boxed with a cooler, and while this cooler actually does a great job of keeping the temperatures in place, it won't really allow the processor to reach the boost frequencies that often. With AMD Ryzen, AMD has implemented a feature what is known as PBO, or Precision Boost Overdrive. Ryzen 3000 AMD have updated this to a Precision Boost Overdrive 2. Now, PBO for short is an algorithmic feature that automatically overclocks the processor if the temperatures allows for it. And with the stock cooler, it doesn't leave much headroom for PBO or Precision Boost Overdrive to run, higher clock speeds. And while it's not necessary, picking a third-party cooler can actually do some benefit for the gaming performance. Now, keep in mind, we're not talking about huge numbers here, but it's something that can be worth it. As you can see, for the B-roll, I'm using Arctic Liquid Freezer 2. Now, this is a 240mm radiator that costs $65, and this is one of the cheapest IO solutions out there. And if you want to check this out, you find a link to this one down in the video description. But yeah, a disclaimer here, you don't need a third-party cooler. You can use the stock cooler also if you want to. The liquid cooler is not really part of the build, but you can obviously pick it up if you want to, and you find a link to this one down in the video description. Alright, so moving on to the motherboard. So currently I'm demonstrating this on the Crosshair 6 Hero with updated BIOS to support 3rd gen Ryzen, but I do actually recommend ASRock Steel Legend B450. Now, normally with B450 you would need a BIOS update, but pretty much all B450 motherboards nowadays got support for 3rd gen Ryzen. There is plenty of comments confirming ASRock Steel Legend B450 being Ryzen 3000 ready, and this is a very solid motherboard. It's got support for dual channel DDR4, we got SATA 3, we got USB 3.1, M.2, we got gigabit Ethernet, and a total of 7 USB ports, so you never never have to think about having to invest in extra USB ports, accessories, and as a nice bonus, it's also got very solid coolings over the VRMs, which can be a nice bonus in case you ever decide to toss out the 3600 and, you know, let's say slot in a 3900X for example, which put a bit more pressure on the VRMs. But yeah, you don't really have to worry about ever running the VRMs too hot with the 3600. I've seen a few comments on that, but it's not a problem. The 3600 is simply not that power thirsty. Now, I think aesthetic is important, and I think this looks very sleek as well. You know, black and white. It's even got some RGB as well, and it's going to match up perfectly with the case I've chosen as well, which we're gonna take a look at in just a second. Now, right now, Steel Legend sits at $109, but when I made this list, it was selling for $95. And having a quick look at the price history using Keepa, which I highly recommend you guys to download, which is a Chrome extension, we can see that it has been selling for $95 for the most part, and the chances are when you're watching this, it's gonna be back on $95 again. Anyway, this is a great solid motherboard that's gotten lots of great reviews, and I can't recommend this enough. You'll find the link to this one down in the video description. Let's take a look at the graphics card. Alright, so for $1,000 you get tons of compute power, and for this build I picked one of the best bang for the buck graphics cards you can find right now. It's based on AMD's Navi, an RDNA, and it's called Radeon RX 5700 XT. Now it goes up right next to the RTX 2070 Super. Now this particular card I chose comes from FXX and it's called Thick, and there is an explanation to that. It's got dual 1mm fans blowing on a very thick layer of heat pipe, resulting in lower temperatures and higher overclocking potential. Now what I especially like with this card, except for the name, is the 0 dB fan system, which is another word for semi-passive fan operation, meaning the fans will stop spinning whenever temperature stays below a certain threshold, and when the temperature rises, the fans will speed up as needed. Now, in case you want to save a bit here and you don't really need this much power, you can actually save $60 and instead snag the RX 5700, which is still a very powerful graphics card, but obviously not as powerful as the XT variant. I decided to throw in benchmark figures for both cards to give you guys a better idea how big the performance difference actually is. Anyway, regardless what card you end up with, you should be very satisfied with whatever game you decide to run. But yeah, I highly recommend checking out the benchmark for more details. So for RAM, I went with this dual 8GB kit from Corsair, and although this isn't BDI as far as I'm aware, which are known for being particularly good with Ryzen, this has an XMP profile of 3600 MHz, and I'm 99% sure you're gonna be able to run this in 3600. Now, because how Ryzen works and how the Infinity fabric communicates with the processor, high-speed memory sticks can increase the performance, and the 3600 MHz is a nice sweet spot, so I highly recommend this. Very stable and really not that pricey either. And jumping over to storage, I picked this 960GB drive SSD from Crucial. It's cheap and fast, and keep in mind, in case you're planning on having lots of games installed, I actually recommend opting for at least 2TB, but yeah, 1TB will get you pretty far as a start. As for the power supply, I went with this 550W unit from Corsair. It's got 80+ bronze efficiency, and it's got a bit of extra headroom in case you want to upgrade the system with a beefier graphics card later down the road. It's also semi-modular, meaning that you won't have to deal with, you know, heaps of cables you don't have use for. This will make cable management and cable routing so much easier when installing this in your PC case. And speaking of case, this is obviously personal preference, but yeah, I went with NZXT's H510. It's not just the fact that I think it looks great, you can't really find that many options that beats the pricing for this one. It comes in at just under $70. It's all steel and there's no plastic on this case at all. H510 or 510 also comes with 2 pre-installed fans, and although the air intake leaves a bit to wish for, I honestly never had any heating problem. And in case you really want good airflow, I can highly recommend Corsair's Crystal 460X, and this case comes with triple 120 fans installed in the front and tempered glass that can actually be removed if you want even more airflow. Anyway, I think NZXT's done a very solid job with this one. It's got dust filters on every intake, plenty of space for longer graphics cards and longer supply units. We got support support for up to 4 SSDs. You can even mount 2 mechanical drives in the front bottom if you want to as well. Now one disappointment is that in case you want to install a mechanical hard drive, NZXT completely forgot to include rubberized dampening for the hard drive base, and so therefore I don't really recommend installing, a mechanical spinning hard drive, but chances are you're only going to rely on SSD anyway. And for liquid cooling's got support for a 240 rad in the top and a 360mm rad in the front. NZXT is also selling a more expensive model, which includes a software-based smart hub to control fan curves and address the also included, LED strips. This, however, adds a few dollars to the price tag, and it's worth having in mind. With that said, time to see how this performs in game. Again, I decided to run tests in 1080, 1440 and 4K. Even though 4K is a little bit too much to ask for, it still gives you a good idea of what to expect at least. Now keep in mind, all games tested were more or less maxed out, and so as you can imagine, you will see greater numbers if you decide to drop the settings a bit. Regardless, the 5700 is a fantastic 1440p graphics card, and if you haven't been gaming at 1440p, I can highly recommend it, as it gives you that nice sweet graphics uplift over 1080 while not being too heavy on the hardware. And generally, as you can see, there is about 6 to 10 FPS difference between the 5700 and the 5700 XT. In some games the difference is greater, and in some other the difference is even less than 6 FPS. Now for example, running Shadow of the Tomb Raider in 4K, you can't really tell which graphics card the game is running on. Anyway guys, I decided to do 2 configs for you guys. Both ends up around $1,000, and you find a link to each config down in the video description. In case you're on the hunt for a new monitor, I actually made a video going over some of the most affordable ones to consider. You'll find that video in the link down below. In case you got any questions, I'm happy to help you out. I'll watch either of these 2 videos for more content, and I will see you over there.